Welcome into the DNVR Rockies Podcast. I am your host, Patrick Lyons, and on today's DNVR Rockies Pod, we're going to be talking with our guy, Herb Lawrence from CHGO White Sox about the big shakeup going on down on the south side of Chicago with the White Sox. We'll talk about our prospects of the week, as always. And this week, we're kicking off with DNVR Ranks, top 25 greatest athletes in the four major sports in Denver history. And so all week, we're going to look at things from a Rockies standpoint, and we'll talk about the top 5 defunct minor league affiliates for the Colorado Rockies. Not all the teams that they've been paired with over the years are still around. Some of them are. We're not going to include those, but we got some cool logos. We'll get super producer Tiff's opinion on what these logos look like. Was it a misstep? Would you like to own a piece of merchandise with that? What have you? We'll preview the Atlanta series, all that and so much more. But of course, let's jump into our prospects of the week. We got Hunter Goodman. Look, he made his debut on Sunday. Still doesn't mean he wasn't the best player at Albuquerque. Hit .588, unbelievable, 4 home runs, 11 RBI in his 15 games in AAA. Keep this in mind. Dude hit 9 homers and recorded 33 RBI. Only 5 Rockies have hit that many homers all year, and one of them is currently with the Los Angeles Angels in CJ Cron. And his 33 RBI, only 5 players on the Rockies have more, including the recently released Jurickson Profar. So the dude was raking in about a little over 2 weeks, deserved the call-up, earned it. Really excited to talk with him down at the ballpark today on Monday, and we'll bring you some of our conversation on Tuesday's show as well. Everyone was hitting last week down in Albuquerque. Props to Wynn Bernard and Jimmy Herron. Both hit a homer, 4 stolen bases against the Oklahoma City Dodgers. Doing a really nice job there against a team that's kind of been one of the best in the Pacific Coast League. Connor Siebel had a really good first start, which was solid. Not so much yesterday on Sunday. And Jeff Criswell had one of those solid Pacific Coast League type starts. Didn't go too deep. Didn't give up too many runs. Wasn't dominant, but still. In AA for the Hartford Yard Goats, Carson Palmquist. I'm not sure if you got a chance to go over to the DNVR Rockies account on Twitter, but you can see highlights of him striking out 8 during his 7 innings performance. Did not give up a single run, only gave up 4 hits, walked 1 batter. The dude looks a lot like Kyle Freeland, even in some of his mannerisms, the way he kind of goes to his belt just a little bit after getting his strikeout, kind of coming in 3/4 arm length. Man, he's very uncanny look to Kyle Freeland. Connor Van Scoyoc did a nice job with 7 scoreless innings. Joe Buck, 6 innings pitched, 2 runs, 7 Ks for him. Yard Goats only scored 13 runs this week, so offensively, not great. Drew Romo did score 4 times thanks to a 385 week at the plate. Only struck out once in 13 at-bats. Sterling Thompson had 3 RBI. Colin Simpson was 4 for 8 in 3 games. That was nice. Adael Amador, one of the Rockies' top prospects right now. He was promoted to AA Hartford. Only 20 years old for Adael Amador. This is a guy that's come up as a shortstop. Probably need to transition over to second base. Is there a chance he could even play some third base? We'll kind of wait and see. It's wild to think that maybe this time next year, you could have a double play duo of Amador at second base, Tovar at shortstop. What happens to Brendan Rodgers? Again, all of this maybe will be uncovered and discovered this offseason. But Adael Amador, keep an eye on him. He's been really good. No one was really better last week at High A, Spokane, than Anderson Pilar. Had those 7 no-hit innings of work, walked 3, struck out 13, and what ended up being a combined no-hitter. Brian Castillo got the final 6 outs in that no-no for Spokane. Jared Candy doing a nice job. So again, another pitcher doing big things down with Spokane. 7 shutout innings for him. Lots of good starts for Spokane. On the hitter side, honorable mention to Nick Kent, who batted .364 with 2 doubles and 7 RBI. Didn't strike out a single time in 22 at-bats. So he's putting the ball in play. He's been a nice find from them. in previous drafts. Robbie Martin, Jesus Ordonez had a really nice job at the plate. And then in low A, Connor Stain, we talked about him a lot last week with Stephen Rice, the voice of the Fresno Grizzlies. 6 innings pitched, gave up a run. It was not earned, struck out 5, didn't walk a batter, did strike out 8. Michael Prosecki also did a nice job. We'll give him an honorable mention. But Connor Stain doing big things. You hope that he gets an opportunity at high A, maybe at some point towards the end of the season where he can get a start there, get his feet wet. Maybe you see him in Double A at some point next year. So still a lot of really good arms in the rotation down in the lower levels of the minors. Got to work to get them up a little bit higher so they can start to contribute to the Rockies at the big league level. At the plate, 3 guys were doing it. Andy Perez, once again, 438, a triple, 3 RBI, 3 stolen bases. Dion Jorge, not Dion George. We learned last week, not Dion George. Dion Jorge, 5 RBI, 3 stolen bases. And Kyle Karros doing a really nice job. One of those draft picks from this year's crop. He did hit 375 with 4 walks and 1 strikeouts. You like to see that from him. And if you like to make sure you're getting your money back and winning big, you can bet $1 and turn it into $200 in bonus bets when you join Bet365. Download the app, deposit $10, and claim your $200 in bonus bets as soon as you place a bet for only $1. Download Bet365 app and use code DNVR365 when you sign up. We've said it here many times. They're a proud partner of the Colorado Rockies. Beyond that, they've got so many live streaming events each and every year. They're getting close to 1 million by the end of the year. So many users worldwide. They've pioneered live in-game betting, and they're doing it again with their baseball early payout offer. Instead of having to wait for the final 3 outs, or in some cases 6 or 9, for your bullpen to come through, if your team goes up by 5 runs or more on your bet, you are declared a winner according to the Bet365 baseball early payout offer. Same game parlay and same game parlay selections will be marked as winner. So download the app and use code DNVR365 when you sign up. Must be 21 or older and physically located in Colorado. Please gamble responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, simply call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Breckenridge Distillery, an official bourbon of the Denver Broncos. That's, look, the award-winning, the highest in the world, literally, quite high, quite literally the highest up in Breckenridge. I'm not sure what the elevation is up there. If they're at 10,000, if they're more like 9,000, but still, they're also doing wonderful things. They're winning awards for just about everything you can. Whiskey Magazine, calls it one of the best locations to go and grab a bite to eat. Take a look at what they've got going up there at the distillery. It's amazing. They've got so many award-winning spirits. And, they offer an immersive guest experience when you do go there. Their products are available in all 50 states. So shop your local retailer or visit BreckenridgeDistillery.com for home delivery of award-winning Breckenridge spirits. Let's go ahead and welcome our buddy Herb Lawrence in from CHGO White Sox. Herb, look, we're both in the same boat here at the bottom of our respected divisions here. One of us probably is supposed to be, the other one not so much. How are you guys holding up there in Chicago right now?
Well, White Sox fans are been fed up for a long time, especially because of the ownership. But, I think this year there was some renewed hope maybe that the White Sox would do something because we're in a terrible division there, AL Central, where only one team's over 500 right now, and that's the Minnesota Twins. So, this is not that hard of a division to win. Be close to 500 would be good. But, White Sox fans are even more dismayed at how poorly this team has done, just having to win on Sunday to salvage a 4-game set versus the worst team in baseball, the Oakland Athletics.
Yeah, that was a tough look. Also, kind of tough, and maybe I don't know if there's more information out there in general, but this weekend a strange event where there were 2 women with gunshot wounds that were at Guaranteed Rate Field. No one seems to know what that's about. Do you know anything about this?
No, and it was like they still don't know what happened, how it happened, how a gun got into the building, but they have all but ruled out that it had to happen inside the stadium, the shooting, because they don't see how a bullet could hit Section 161 and guaranteed rate. But they don't have any answers. But this happened in the 4th inning on Friday, and even though they didn't know where the shots came from, who perpetrated the shots, they didn't think there was an active shooter. And still on Monday, they have fewer answers, and a lot more questions to go along with it. So CPD, Chicago Police Department, and the White Sox are going hand to hand right now. And as far as I don't know, they just don't know how to wrap this case up, and there's no answers after a whole weekend of investigation. I say CPD is kind of like the White Sox right now. They're not batting very well. They're really fumbling the ball right now because they played 2 other games after this, still with no answers. A person could still be getting into that building with a gun. That's what we know, that people got shot, as you said. 2 ladies got shot. Don't know who the perpetrator is. Don't know how a gun got into there. And if you've ever been to Guaranteed Rate Field, you know the security and how to get in the game and how long it takes. It's thorough. So it had to be a mess up by somebody and or oversight by somebody if a gun got in that building.
Did anyone that maybe Vinny is the only one, I'm not sure who's going down to the ballpark on a day-to-day basis, but were things a little bit tighter on Saturday and Sunday? Was the vibe a little bit different around there? Or is it kind of status quo in a sense? It might be sad to say it that way, but was anything different this weekend after that incident?
We asked Vinny yesterday on the show what had been different on Saturday or Sunday. He said nothing really had changed as far as how he gets into the ballpark. Media gets in the ballpark different than actual customers and fans, but no extra security checks. As I said, they have literal people rummaging through your bags. If you're a lady, if you have a purse, they're looking through your bags. They're not just taking your word for it. Then you got to go through a metal detector. Then you have to go through another place where it's not really security. It's just making sure that you have your seats that are on your phone and you can be entered into the 100 section. If you don't have 100 seats, you cannot get into the 100 level at Guaranteed Rate Field. It's the only ballpark that I've been to in the 20 I've been to that does that 2 times, double checks. And so we complain about it as White Sox fans all the time. And then when it fails, ultimately, like it did on Friday, we're like, what's all the security for? We get into every other ballpark so easily, and they don't have shootings at their ballpark. And of course, if we're talking to people who are in Denver, I'm sure they've gotten the national narrative of Chicago being very dangerous and shots being rung out here, especially on the south side. It couldn't be. I mean, there's truth, of course, to any big city that has some danger and some crime to it. But Chicago is not that. Chicago is pretty safe as far as walking around, doing all that good stuff, especially at the ballpark usually. But that, it was a scary incident. And then they just continued the game. The only bright spot that came out of this, they had a 90s concert that was supposed to go on after. It was going to be Tone Loc, Rob Bass, and Vanilla Ice on the field, like a 90s throwback concert. That got canceled. So that's the only positive that happened.
What? Why are you throwing shade at, you don't want to hear Funky Cole Medina or anything like that?
No, or the Ninja Rap. No, I'm good. I'm real good. Actually,
he might still play that one. You're right.
Yeah, Vanilla Ice actually was my first concert. Vanilla Ice, it was In Vogue and MC Hammer back in 90, 91.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm old.
Was Hammer the headliner? I would hope so, right?
Oh yeah. This was right when Hammer Don't Hurt Him album dropped, and he was on the top of his world.
And then did In Vogue open? I mean, In Vogue has some bangers, but still at the time I would have guessed Vanilla Ice was a little bit hotter.
Yeah, it was In Vogue and then Vanilla Ice and then Hammer. UIC Pavilion back in the day. Yeah, it was jumping. I was a 12-year-old boy just having the time of my life. And then since I've grown up, I was like, a little better music.
Wow. All right. I'm Rob Bass and I came to get down. Well,
exactly.
I mean, that's obviously, man, a black eye, like you said. After everything that happened all last week, and it wasn't even just the firings, you go, things couldn't get worse. And it's like, no, let's talk about real humanity and people getting hurt and not feeling safe. And it's like, man, that's way worse than just did your team win or lose. So let's talk about those nice things that we're able to and speculate on. But Jerry Reinsdorf, the owner of the Chicago White Sox, finally made a decision, changed his mind, and said, Kenny Williams and Rick Hahn, general manager, it was time to just move on from them. Curious if the Rockies had actually swept in Colorado on that Sunday, 2 days before, if this wouldn't have happened 24 hours earlier. As it were, it happened about 48 hours after that where that became official. That are you still reeling? It's now almost a week out. Is it still a surprise that Jerry Reinsdorf did that to two guys that has been so close to him, especially Kenny Williams, who he called like a son to him?
Mm-hmm. It's been weird because there's multiple layers to this. Firstly, White Sox fans don't like Jerry Reinsdorf much at all. And then so that when that dropped on Tuesday, it was both a shock and like celebration. Not celebration that people are getting fired. It's just that accountability has finally made its way to 35th and Shields at Guaranteed Rate Field because, as you said, Kenny Williams has been with the team for 25 plus years. Rick Hahn 20 plus years himself. And so I don't know if Rocky fans know how bad the White Sox have been in that period. Yes, in that period, they have won one World Series. Since that period, they have won 0, and I mean 0, playoff series. I think individually 3 games they've won, one in 2008 versus the Tampa Bay Rays, one versus the Oakland Athletics in 2020 or 2020, and one versus the Houston Astros in 2021. And those guys have had job security all throughout there. So we were happy that Jerry Reinsdorf finally did the thing that we've wanted them to do for a long time, but also knowing that the owner is part of the problem of this team being bad. You bring up that Colorado Rockies series, and it's kind of maybe part of why they got fired because the 23 days since the trade deadline and then when they got fired, it's just a lot of embarrassment in there. I mean, you got the Keenan Middleton thing where he's saying that they had no rules on the White Sox. You just showed up. There's no one held accountable for anything. Then you get the Tim Anderson getting punched out thing. A lot of other stories coming out about the White Sox maybe wanting to move maybe to Nashville, which all us White Sox fans in Chicago were like, Chicago's 9 million people. Why would we move to a city with 1.5? That doesn't make any sense. Mm-hmm. And then, losing to the Rockies, one of the worst teams in baseball, the team just below the White Sox in the standings. And that
Yeah, the Rockies obviously, came into the season hoping to be at 500 if all things went great. They didn't, and so naturally, they traded off their assets, and the White Sox did the same too. But their expectations were obviously a lot higher. It's why the GM and the one of the vice presidents in Kenny Williams was let go because of those expectations. So when you lose to a team like that, or even this weekend, as Herb points out, playing against the A's, who they were built to lose, point blank, and barely able to eke out something there was obviously less than ideal. And we're going to ask him too, of course. Part of all of this, what's baked into it, is the fact that this team tanked. This team with Kenny Williams and Rick Hahn went out and said, let's actually trade a lot of our best assets to get worse, but in hopes that maybe, we'll be better in the future. Now is that time. Now is that future for them to be better. And it didn't work. And now where do they go from there? Where you need to go is Kind Love, because they've been a wonderful partner for us here at DNVR. We love supporting local brands. We love the Kind Love cannabis. We always get a consistent, great experience when we go there. We know so many of their customers who have been going there as well that have been high on Kind Love, partially because we're talking about quality, integrity, consistency, variety, and safety. That's what they are all about. It's one of the first dispensaries in Colorado, established back in 2010, known for cultivating some of the highest quality cannabis in the state. They actually just launched their new infused pre-roll line, the Turbo Joint, using the same technology. Turbo Joint is absolutely fantastic, and it's not going to be messy for you, which is great, especially in the summer with the heat. And it burns slower, and it's much more flavorful too. So make sure you check that out at any of their stores in Cherry Creek or North Denver. You mentioned DNVR, and you're going to receive the DNVR exclusive discount of 25% off all Kind Love flower, pre-rolls, and their Turbo Joint line. Or visit their website at kindlove.com for the full extensive menu and online ordering. Get this, DNVR, that code, it does now work for deliveries, and DNVR is a code that also works really great for Shady Rays. You use it, you buy a pair, you get a pair for free. Give it as a gift if you would like, or simply put, you can just have 2 for the price of 1. If you lose or break your glasses, fear not, because they've got a replacement policy on that. They'll go ahead and hook you up. You can get a full refund within 30 days. Go in person if you need to the Park Meadows Mall. You're going to like it even just by looking on their website at shadyrays.com. You'll be totally fine, especially when you use that code DNVR. But if you want to see it in person, go to the Park Meadows Mall for 50% off 2 or more pairs of polarized shades. The shades rated 5 stars by over 200,000 folks. So our guy Herb here, they are in search for a general manager. And, you know, the White Sox, their situation is very similar to what the Rockies had to deal with during the 2021 season when GM Jeff Bridich was let go or resigned. I think officially on the books, he stepped aside. But still, they needed a new general manager, the Rockies did in 2021. And the front office and ownership, Dick Monfort, said, hey, we're going to look outside the team. In the end, they stuck with the farm director. It's one of the reasons why the Rockies are considered to be somewhat insular. I think Jerry Reinsdorf has that same kind of reputation. Are they going to go outside the organization for these new hires? Or is Chris Getz, their assistant GM, going to get that gig and they're just going to kind of run it back and say, hey, the guys that we know, we're just going to keep it that way, then do something more radical and go outside the organization?
Firstly, my apologies. My computer dropped off, and this audio might be different because I'm not like connected to the microphone. Sorry, I hope the audio is good. But yeah, I think Jerry Reinsdorf. We as White Sox fans knew that he's an insular guy, and he's very loyal to a fault. So we're like, okay, he's gonna hire somebody that is more he knows. So we're throwing around names around who are major league people who have experience being general managers and experience with Jerry Reinsdorf. So we're thinking Kim Kim is a person that was down there in Miami, worked with Jerry in the early 90s. Maybe she would be wanting to come back. Also, Mike Rizzo, the baseball operations guy in Washington, who was about to sign an extension with the Washington Nationals, even though they're getting new ownership. We're like, maybe he doesn't want to see what the new ownership's going to be about. He knows Jerry. Jerry knows him because he started his career as a scout with the White Sox. That would be a good way for the White Sox to go. But, of course, the rumor of Chris Getz getting banting about, I think early on Wednesday by Bob Nightingale of USA Today, just sent every White Sox fan into a fit of rage because not only is Chris Getz not qualified to be the sole baseball voice for any team, much less the White Sox, but the job he's currently in, he's not qualified for, which he's like the minor league coordinator for the White Sox. And if you've ever looked up the White Sox and the run differential, as far as all the minor leagues, they are on the bottom. Like their whole minor leagues is just crap. And we got boosted up by the trades that Kenny Williams and Rick Hahn made as far as prospects, because we traded away good veterans for decent to all right prospects, so which lifted our profile from the mid-20s to, I think some people have it in the top 10, some people have it as high as 15. And so the White Sox really don't have a good minor league system, and they're going to have the guy who runs that minor league system be our general manager. And the reason why we believed it is because Bob Nightingale is the one who broke the Tony La Russa news a couple of years ago. You know, when we heard that, we're like, come on, Bob, that's just ridiculous. Why would they hire an 80-year-old dude to run a baseball club that's young? Happening? That's dumb, Bob. Ha ha ha. And that happened. So we know that Bob Nightingale has somebody in the White Sox here, and we thought for a long time it was just Kenny Williams, but now we know it's Tony La Russa and then maybe also Jerry Reinsdorf.
Yeah, Rogue Wave Creative saying, super impressed that we're talking about this. Been waiting for this discussion for about 2 years, at least on the Rockies side. The caveat here is, of course, the White Sox are kind of acting the same as always. To your point, Herb, there, you want to go outside, and I know former GM of the Royals, Dayton Moore, has been another one of those names kind of kicked around. But I think what it comes down to, I see your head shaking there. What it comes down to is a headline Keith Law had in The Athletic was just White Sox clean house, but does it change anything if Jerry Reinsdorf is still there? I think there are a couple fan bases that kind of have the same feeling that if their team, finally starts to make some strides, it might be in spite of their owner. I know a lot of Rockies fans feel that way about owner Dick Monfort, who can be involved maybe more than they would like, rather than just trusting in the baseball people, which it seems like Jerry Reinsdorf does. He trusts the baseball people, but who are these baseball people? Are they his buddies and pals who are very comfortable, or are they going to be people that are striving to push the limits and do things differently, and really help the franchise? And so that's kind of my question: is as long as Jerry Reinsdorf owns this team, is there just this worry that they're just really going to be treading water until something changes at the ownership level?
Yes, that's what White Sox fans have been wishing for a long time. They say sell the team, but there are a couple more of the people out there that are, wishing for different things, which I don't get a part of. I'm like, I want the man to be as healthy as he can be. Same thing with Tony La Russa. I said that about last year. I was like, Tony La Russa needs to leave the White Sox. I want to be healthy because he was running into some health problems, and luckily he's gotten off of the on the other side of his pacemaker problems. But it also was revealed that he had a private dealing with cancer too. So I don't want to wish death upon the guy just to change my baseball team. I want him to wake up and say, I bought this team for $19 million. It's worth $3 billion now. Let me cash out. It's time to cash out, live my last of my years in great luxury and enjoy everything I've ever wanted to do, because I know the man, the person is not going to change. We're not going to have better things as a White Sox fan base because the person is selfish. The person doesn't want to change. And that's his prerogative as a person that owns the White Sox. He can do all that if he wants to. But as a White Sox fan, I'm going to voice my displeasure if he doesn't get somebody who actually knows what they're doing and gives them enough resources to do it. It was reported last year the White Sox have one of the least amount of people working in the research and development department in baseball. And you can wonder, you can see how the White Sox keep on drafting first basemen, DHs, people who can't field all the time. They keep on doing the same thing because they don't have enough people to tell the baseball people to say, don't draft that guy. He's bat only. And when his bat fails, he's going to be close to the zero replacement level, which most of the White Sox players are on this team. And so that's what Jerry Reinsdorf needs to do if he wants to be serious about winning. Kind of like a Mike Ilitch type of thing at the end of his life, the Detroit Tigers owner, who also ran Little Caesars too. He, at the end of his life, was like, let's throw money at this thing. Let's get better. I want one last hurrah before I leave. Unfortunately for Mike, they did not win, but all Tiger fans are going to go, and when his legacy is brought up and his name is brought up, they're like, hey, Mike Ilitch tried. Mike Ilitch wanted to win, and he brought us respectability, and I'm never going to say anything bad about his name. In Chicago, Jerry Reinsdorf's name, even though he's won 7 championships in this town, is tarnished here. Bulls fans hate him. White Sox fans hate him. Nationally, I think he's a joke. So, yeah, he needs to go and swallow his pride and just hire somebody who he knows can run baseball operations. And that person needs to demand Jerry to give him the money to improve the team, because it is systemic within the White Sox how they don't spend money on the things that matter and how they don't spend any contracts. I think, I don't know if people know this, but I think it's only 3 teams, the A's, the Royals, and the White Sox, that have not signed a player for $100 million in their history, ever, as a free agent. Not one time. And so that is behind the times. And with those other two teams, those are small market teams, like Oakland small market, Kansas City small market. Chicago's huge. And I don't care if we're the second team, we're still huge. So Jerry Reinsdorf needs to wise up and get with the times, because people are going to offer in like 500, 600,000. If Shohei Ohtani was healthy, they'll be offering the world. And we haven't even offered him the low end of that.
Yeah, I think when Benintendi signed, that was like the largest free agent deal, which was like shocking when I heard that. And it's funny because as you say that, like, hey, throw money at the problem, and all right, thank you, we appreciate that, but it doesn't always work. In fact, probably many times it doesn't. As you said, Illich and the Tigers doing that. We're seeing what's going on in San Diego, Stephen A. Cohen. But I think fans of those teams at least respect those owners for doing it. But to your point, it's not about just signing free agents. It's about really investing in the future of the franchise, the people that are kind of the foundation, analytics department, people in scouting, things of that nature. The White Sox, as you said, are kind of struggling with that. You know, the Rockies have struggled with that in the past. They've definitely addressed that to try to improve upon that, but I think they still have some ways to go. It's crazy too that with the firings last week, just 24 hours, the White Sox were in the news for all the wrong things, as you said, mentioning about the possibly moving or needing a new stadium. It's really strange because Rob Manfred said only a couple years ago that the league needed to address the stadium situation in Tampa and Oakland, and they've essentially done that. I know the Oakland situation; they're still working on that, and they have a formal relocation form, that was put in by owner John Fisher, and Tampa is kind of working on getting that new stadium there in St. Petersburg, but still they needed to get those things done before relocation. And now we've got all these new stadium things going on. Milwaukee is another one of those. Chase Field is kind of in disrepair there for the Diamondbacks. The Orioles and their owner, John Angelos, who's doing a good job of nationally being a very disliked owner. They want to get something new, and same things for the White Sox there. It's just kind of strange. Like, I don't really know what's going on. Maybe this is all part of working for a multi-billion-dollar corporation. You say one thing, and then when you get what you want, you go, we still actually want a little bit more.
Yeah, and the thing about guaranteed rate field where the White Sox play, it's not that old. I mean, the Orioles Stadium, year older, or a year younger than the guaranteed rate. Actually, the blueprints for Oriole Park were given to Jerry Reinsdorf initially, and he rejected them out of hand. He wanted to be more like Kauffman Stadium at the time and Yankee Stadium. He
Oops.
wanted the ballpark to look like that, and he got his wish. It's just a bland stadium. It's terrible. But
Yeah.
there's nothing structurally wrong with guaranteed rate field. Like, there's no repairs that need to be made. It's a fine ballpark if you just want to go and watch baseball. You'll have an enjoyable time. But it is not bells and whistles necessarily. Good food, good drinks, but it's not Coors, it's not Oracle, it's not PNC or Petco. Those type of ballparks that you want to go and see because they're destination places and beautiful show places for baseball. So it's more of a ploy like Jerry did back in the early or late 80s, early 90s, where he said, I'm going to move. I'm going to move to Tampa. At the time, there's no Tampa Bay Rays. It was just an open place, and the White Sox had their spring training down there in Sarasota, Florida. He used that as a ploy to get the money from the Illinois State Board, and the governor himself, Jim Thompson, who was a big-time White Sox fan at the time. They ran a legislation through to get the money for the guaranteed rate, which at the time was called Comiskey Park number 2, and got that built within like 3 years. And pretty much Jerry Reinsdorf has had a sweetheart of a deal since then because he used the ploy of, I'm going to move the stadium, I'm going to move the team from this city to a different state, and they caved. Us voters and us and the political climate is much different. We understand that these guys are billionaires now. We are not going to do that. So him using Nashville against the White Sox won't work this time because we're much smarter and we know the numbers. We know it's not going to work down in Nashville. So he needs to move on to the next thing and try to get a stadium built with his own dollars or some private funding, because the state of Illinois and the city of Chicago won't pay for a stadium, especially a stadium that was built in 1991. We're not Texas. We're not Arizona. We're not going to be discussing those things. We're not Atlanta, who's built a stadium since and then built another stadium since the guarantee rate has been open. So it is one of the oldest stadiums in baseball, like I think in the top 10, but it's not decrepit. It's fine. It works.
Yeah, voters are definitely smart enough now to know to not vote for those kind of things and give away free money. I know, part of the roster issue right now for looking ahead to 2024 seems like there's a lack of leadership. There's not a ton of free agents, so pretty much everybody's going to come back. I'm really curious if Tim Anderson's going to come back. He does have a $14 million option with $1 million buyout, and you say, well, a guy that good, you take your chance on him. It's probably a down year, but do you pick up his option and then trade him? Do you think Tim Anderson will cease being a White Sox player in 2024?
I do not believe so. They will, I think, 95% pick up his option because multiple reasons. Bad year, off the field stuff happened to Tim, and his on the field stuff was terrible this year. So they're thinking contract year next year, he'll perform at his peak. We'll get premium Tim. And if we need to trade him, we'll trade him at the deadline in 2024. So they'll pick him up, pick up his option. And then, yes, like you said, they will maybe entertain if somebody comes to them real and with a deal to trade him. But the only thing the White Sox, as I go back to the minor league thing with Chris Getz, they don't have anybody behind him immediately. Colson Montgomery is the 17th ranked prospect in some, and ESPN with Kyler McDaniel, he's the number 2 prospect in Major League Baseball. But he's probably a year and a half away from being a Major League ready shortstop. He's really tall, 6'4", and most people think he'll eventually be a third baseman. So he's not in the plans for 2024. And they have really no one else behind him. A bunch of middle infielders who are at AAA, who are ultimately 4A players. They don't want to go into next year with one of those guys as the people. Tim Anderson is important to the White Sox. Before this year in 2022, he was the starting shortstop for the American League. So he has recent success. His precipitative drop off from that height and the height of hitting the walk-off home run at the Field of Dreams game has been amazing and sad in the same vein. So I think they're going to bring him back with the hopes of him bouncing back to his all-star form in 2022. And then if he is good then, and the White Sox are still not competing, his price will be a little higher on the trade market, especially for a 2-month rental. They can get some more value out of him next year than they would get from him either at the trade deadline that just passed us or in the offseason this year. Because I think teams are going to be operating with the thought of, this is Tim Anderson who showed up in 2023. And not wrong of them to do that, but I would, if I was the White Sox, whoever the general manager going to be, I'm like, I'm not trading 2023 Tim Anderson for 2023 prices. I'm looking for 2022 prices, or maybe even a bounce back 2024 prices, because you're going to get a lot more from the player. And then, yeah, if they want to entertain him getting traded in 2024 at the trade deadline, I think most White Sox fans are ready to move on. They have soured on him. I'm not, 100% sour on him, but some of the things he has said, I don't even care about his off the field stuff, because that's not my business. Some people are really, really interested in his off the field business, but he has done a couple things on the field where I'm like, hey, that's not Tim. That's not how you play baseball. And he's made a lot of errors on the field where it's not the player we need at shortstop, not the leader we need on the team. And we built this whole team around him, as they used to say, as Tim goes, the team goes. And you couldn't see that more than this year. He had the worst year of his career, and the White Sox are having one of the worst years in their history this year.
Yeah, it's been rough. Before we let you go here, do have to ask, as a big White Sox fan, it's a weird spot to be in right now, 4th worst record in the game. You have White Sox have one of the easiest schedules remaining. Rockies have one of the hardest schedules remaining. So losing a ton of games going forward here is probably not going to be too hard, but could be a little bit harder for the White Sox again with some easier opponents. How do you approach losing games and hoping, in a sense, that your team moves up to the 28th best in MLB so that they can be one of those top 3 teams, or rather bottom 3 teams, in next year's MLB draft lottery, where, again, teams with the 3 worst records have a 16.5% chance of getting the first overall pick. How do you navigate that of like, well, you know what, losing is better. So in a way, let's get our teeth kicked in a little bit during this final month of the season, but you never really want your teeth kicked in. What's your approach on fanning when it comes to that?
Well, right now don't care about wins at all. Only person on the White Sox that cares about wins is the manager, Pedro Grifol. He said that he's not going to sacrifice major league wins for development. For a team that's 28 games, I don't know how many games, under 500 right now, that was one of the dumbest statements I've ever heard. We watch these games to just see who is going to be with us in 2024 and beyond, and see how they're doing, how they can progress, because we're giving way too much time to players like Trace Thompson. He's playing right field over a rookie sometimes, Oscar Colas. It just makes no sense. Oscar Colas should play every game unless he needs a breather. Same thing with second base, where they're playing Elvis Andrus a lot instead of playing a player like Lenyn Sosa, who I think you guys saw there too, hit a home run late in the game, 3-run home. He's young, powerful second baseman that really strikes out a lot. So we just want to see him refine his tools and maybe not be the 4A player that I called him earlier. But we know Elvis Andrus is not going to be on the team next year. Stop playing him. That's what we're looking for. And if they lose throughout those, I'm fine with it, because it doesn't really matter. If we get that top 3, one of those top 3 seats, which put us on equal footing for the MLB draft lottery percentages, baby, that'll be awesome. That'll be the best thing that it comes out of this. And hopefully there is a player. I know there's not an equivalent player to what Connor Bedard is with the Blackhawks. There might not be one ever, but we can get a player that is really, really good and needs some development in our minor league system, and we get the first choice of that player, who that can be. But knowing the White Sox, they'll pick the wrong player, and then the second, third team will get the good generational talents and develop them correctly.
Herb, hang in there, man. We'll talk to you plenty more this off season. Best of luck. Be well, be safe. Thanks for joining us. Go ahead and plug away too for let folks know where they can find you at.
You can follow me on Twitter. It's Ecknerwall23. That's just Lawrence spelled backwards, my last name, and 23 for Robin Ventura or Chris Bryant, my other favorite player. But you can follow us on CHGO White Sox, CHGO _White Sox on Twitter. So we're there every post game. We'll be talking about the White Sox losing to the Baltimore Orioles tonight.
And you're doing it the All City Network way, so it's obviously fun. Even if you're not a fan of the White Sox, jump in. They have a great time.
Yeah.
You'll love it.
Yeah, we're not talking, and in these post games, we don't talk about the game anymore. The game is secondary. Then we talk about how this White Sox team is embarrassing us, how they can be less embarrassing. And then we play a couple games. We got our top 5, like you guys do, White Sox players tonight, and so we're doing that top 25 athletes of Chicago for the whole network. And then within the White Sox, we're going to do some top 5 lists for the actual White Sox team.
It's fun. That's fun, Herb. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a good day.
Thanks.
Man, he's going to have a good day if we send him some Breck Brew Mountain Beach Sour. All he's got to do is go to breckbrew.com, type in the zip, and you'll find out where you can get Breck Brew near you. Breck Brew Locator. It's fantastic. And you get the Mountain Beach Sour. That's the beer of the month, man. Aromas of fresh pineapple, thirst-quenching sour. Vacation in a can, or as we say here, at the bar, where diehards get 15% off food and drink. It's a party in a pint. It's exactly what it is. So as Herb mentioned, we got the DNVR ranks. And so today, for at least our show, again, all throughout DNVR and All City Network, we got the top 25 athletes in Denver, the 4 major sports. That's going to be rolling out all week. And yes, there are Rockies on there. You didn't see one yet today, 21 through 25. You didn't see one. But I guarantee you there are several, to say the least. But each show this week in the Rockies, we'll have our own little top 5 list. Our top 5 today is the 5 greatest defunct minor league affiliates. It's Minor League Monday. So let's dive into that. And again, we're not going to use nicknames like Tulsa Drillers. They are still active. We're going to take a look at these. We'll get some feedback, too, from super producer Tiff.
Yeah,
number
you tell
5.
me where we want to start.
Yes, let's start with number 5, Salem Avalanche. Now, they are in Salem, Virginia. They're still around today, in a sense. They're the Salem Red Sox, but they used to be the Salem Avalanche. What's wild is they started in 1995, so this actually predates the Colorado Avalanche. Rockies had an affiliate called the Salem Avalanche, and it's a cool logo too. It's an avalanche of baseballs, right?
I like it.
That's a good hat. Again, a lot of these you aren't going to be able to get anywhere else. You just won't be able to find them. So best of luck if you can find a retro like that. That's pretty good. All right, what do you think about number 4, the New Britain Rock Cats? This was a AA affiliate for 1 year, 2015, the year before the Hartford Yard Goats. So again, precursor to them. Trevor Story, David Dahl played there. They've got a lot of different alternate kind of logos. What do you think about this vibe? Is it?
I like this one.
It's pretty good.
I've never seen really anything like it, so I like how it's kind of like jazzy. It reminds me of the Aristocats, the Disney movie.
You know what? It does kind of have almost like a Disney type amusement park feel. The cap with the NB, it's hard to even make out what that is, but I think it's supposed to be an NB.
Yeah.
And then in the bottom left-hand corner, they have like one that looks like Elvis. They even had a logo that it was basically that like Elvis figure, and he was bending down on the microphone, and his body made the shape of like an N and a B together.
That's weird.
Very abstract. Hard to kind of pinpoint that. Number 3. So I did a list like this, February of 2022. You can go back, a lot more long-winded, more details about all these. And the list is slightly different, but for number 3, the Colorado Springs Sky Sox, longtime AAA affiliate for the Rockies from 93 to 2014. This was their more recent one, or going to a red, white, and blue. It was okay. I like this. This was the heyday in the 90s. And Dwayne Brown, our guy on DNVR Rapids.
Downtown
Dwayne
Brown.
Yeah, a.k.a. Downstairs Dwayne Brown. He doesn't remember that one. I think that was only a nickname for about a day because he's got to go downstairs to do the show. But he pointed out that the Rocky Mountain Vibes, which they still play down in Colorado Springs, independent team, but still they will bust out, I think on Saturdays, the green, black, and white Sky Sox jerseys. And they're amazing. I mean, Todd Helton there, you see. rocking that. And that's kind of the history going back. The first one in the top left corner, they were the Colorado Springs Millionaires, because back in the day, it used to be millionaires would flock out to Colorado. Kind of similar now to people in California coming out. The one where it says it's got the number 18 on the bottom left-hand corner. That was back when they were originally an affiliate with Cleveland, because they were AAA from 1988 to 1992. So that means Colorado actually had 2 AAA teams here in our state. And then, of course, in 93,
Here, those ones.
couldn't use that anymore. Yeah, here's the photo actually that Dwayne ended up sharing. I was so geeked. I did go to vibesbaseball.com. I think that's the website. They do sell the jersey. They have a flex fit cap, which I don't mess with, but you can get a fitted cap. You can get a jersey like that. Again, super hard to come by. Do you like that? You don't see a green, black, and white combination that much, do you, Tiff?
I know. I like that. I think it's clean. Looks
All
very
right,
clean.
we looked at this one last week, actually, and I know you were kind of digging it. Also, a AA team from Connecticut. Again, not the Yard Goats. They're still around. These are defunct. It's the New Haven Ravens from 94 to 98. Pinstriped white cap. What?
I'm a sucker for that blue color, so anytime any team uses that color, I'm very on board.
It pops, and you've got the Raven as part of that. I think that logo still sticks around for like a college team like Division II. It still exists in some capacity, but great logo. Again, it had a good run for about 5 seasons. They actually play baseball at George H.W. Bush Field, named after the 41st president, and a really good first baseman in college who played at Yale. So, I mean, that's
no
pretty
idea.
neat. Yeah.
Fun fact.
He was a very good ball player.
Huh.
They actually went to postseason 2 years. I think Todd Helton was with them for one of those. And then finally, number 1. Had you seen this one before, Tiff? Have you seen this logo yet? We touched on it. We did touch on it, but number 1, all time, Casper Ghosts. So it originally started out, as you can see in the logo, top left corner, they're the Casper Rockies. Great. Boom. You could take a maybe an hour and a half drive up to Casper. It might be further than that, actually. But they played there for about 7 years as the Casper Rockies. And then in 2018, they rebranded to the Casper Ghosts. There you see Trevor Story rocking the Ghost jersey, where it was like black, silver, and then like almost a dirt color, which was pretty neat. Now that logo, they had a cap. They had a version of that where it actually would glow in the dark.
That's cool.
So it was that like white plastic material that almost had like a tinge of green to it, but from a distance it looked white. You turn the lights off, it glows in the dark. So incredibly hard to come by. They got the vest there. You see Trevor Story, super young, right out of high school, playing ball up there at
like
Mike Lansing Field. He looks like a baby. Yeah, doesn't have the stubble or anything like that.
No.
So never got sued by Harvey Comics, who owns the Casper the Friendly Ghost name there. So
Well, and I mean, he doesn't look very friendly. Like,
no,
the ghost doesn't look friendly, so I think that's probably where they were like, I think we're good.
That's right. And it's ghosts. It's plural. It's not Casper. It's not a series of Casper the Friendly Ghosts.
Yeah.
It's just ghosts from Casper.
Yep.
Casper Ghosts. Yes, a lot scarier there. So those are our top 5 defunct. Tomorrow on Tuesday's show at 1 o'clock with Susie, we'll break down the greatest rookie seasons in Rockies history. Wednesday, the greatest MVP performers. Sunday, greatest uniforms in Rockies history. They've had more than just like a couple, believe it or not. A lot of different combinations that you might not even know about or even realize. So we'll have that going on all week. Shout out to the kids from El Segundo, California. They won the Little League World Series. That was a great game yesterday. Curacao had a grand slam to tie it in the 5th inning, which is the second to last inning there in the Little League World Series, and then a walk-off a home run for California to win it all. So Jurickson Profart, not a great day, got released, and the team from his hometown in Willemstad, Colorado, did get knocked out. But hey, they were the best team internationally. This Atlanta series is going to be a good one. Bryce Elder, 10-4 with a 3.39 ERA, going against Austin Gomber here on Monday. Tuesday, we got Peter Lambert against Charlie Morton, the veteran, with his 3.37 ERA. And then it's to be determined on Wednesday. Freeland's going to go for the Rockies. Spencer Strider could go. That would be pretty cool to see Quadzilla hurling. They might push him back a little bit, maybe go to the next series. Do they want to have a bullpen day? They might be slacking on the Rockies a little bit, saying we don't need to throw our ace on Wednesday. So we'll kind of wait and see what happens. But it's going to be a really interesting series as we talked about it on Sunday. So many former Rockies going to be in that dugout. Some hurt, some coaches, some active, but a lot of Rockies with Atlanta. And we're looking forward to catching up with all of those guys on Twitter. We want to catch up with you on Twitter at DNVR_Rockies. At Patrick D. Lyons is where I can be located. Tiff, go ahead and let people know, because you got your takes there on uniforms. You're doing it on the hockey side as well. Let folks know where they can also
Herb was speaking my language earlier. It's Tiffany, TIFFANI _ Tano, TANO.
I love that. Reach out to us. Thanks for the momentum. We appreciate that, Tiff, giving us your feedback there on the jerseys. But unfortunately, that momentum, sometimes it's not enough. It's only as good as the next show, as we say here in the business. But thankfully, it's going to be a good one tomorrow at 1 p.m. on the DNVR Sports channel right here live on YouTube.